All right, today we're diving into a whole new frontier in security intelligence. We're talking about the Global AI Threat Register, or GAITR. And yeah, you pronounce that GAITR. This isn't just another tool. It's a direct response to a battlefield that's changing faster than we can keep up, a world where the very tools of innovation are being turned into weapons. This quote right here, it really gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? It's not about if AI is going to be used by bad actors. It's already happening. And it's happening at a speed and scale that's just, well, it's overwhelming our traditional defenses. This is the reality we're facing, and it's exactly why we need a completely new way of thinking about security. So what does this new AI battlefield actually look like? Look, we've moved way beyond conventional cyber attacks. We are now in a world where AI is the weapon. And that creates a class of threats that is just, it's fundamentally different from anything we've ever had to deal with before. And I want to be crystal clear. These are not some far-off theoretical risks. We're talking about voice cloning that makes hyper-realistic phishing calls a reality and at massive scale. We're talking about code-generating AI that can create malware that literally changes its signature with every single infection, making it almost impossible to detect. Deepfakes, they're completely dismantling our trust in what we see and hear. And now you've got autonomous agents that can orchestrate incredibly complex multi-stage attacks, all without a human pulling the strings. Our legacy systems, they just weren't built to handle this, not even close. So the big question is, why are our current approaches failing so badly? To really get it, we have to look deeper. See, it's not just about the new threats themselves. It's about our fundamental inability to even see them, to understand them. And this weakness, it really boils down to 4 critical gaps in our security visibility. Okay, so gap number 1, a complete lack of framework alignment. Your security teams, they might know about AI threats, sure, but they have no structured way to connect that knowledge to the specific defensive controls they already have. It's kind of like knowing a hurricane is on the way, but you have no idea which windows to board up first. You're just reacting. Next up, gap number 2, no explainability. You know how traditional threat intel works, right? It just dumps a mountain of raw data on an analyst's desk, and it's up to them to somehow manually figure out what it all means for their organization. That process is not only incredibly slow, it's just begging for human error. Third, and this one is huge, is the lack of tool-level visibility. We talk about deep fake technology in these really abstract terms, but what your security team actually needs to know is which specific open source tool on GitHub is suddenly blowing up and poses a direct risk right now. Without that level of detail, the threat is just this vague, undefined shadow you can't fight. And that brings us to the final gap, governance. Look, everyone wants to use AI to help with security analysis, but there's a massive trust issue. How can you possibly rely on a recommendation from an AI if you can't see how it reached its conclusion? You need a clear, auditable framework to know its findings are sound and verifiable, and not just some random guess from a black box. And this slide, well, it perfectly lays out the fundamental shift that has to happen. We have to go from simply listing threats to actually explaining them. We need to move from generic recommendations to specific framework-aligned controls, from static point-in-time reports to a living, real-time register. And we absolutely have to get away from manual, siloed analysis and move to an AI assistant process that has real human governance and end-to-end traceability. So this is where the solution comes into play. Let's talk about the GAITR register. It's a platform that was literally designed from the ground up to close those 4 critical gaps we just walked through. Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that GAITR is not just another threat feed, not at all. It's an explainable, living register. It doesn't just tell you what a threat is. No, it catalogs it, it maps it directly to a defensive playbook, and, this is the most important part, it explains why it matters, giving your teams the context they need to take immediate, smart action. So how does it work? Well, the platform's power and credibility are built on 3 core pillars. These aren't just random ideas. They're integrated, industry-standard frameworks that create a solid foundation of trust, interoperability, and truly actionable intelligence. Pillar number 1 is Google's Secure AI Framework. You'll see it called SAIF. Think of this as the defensive lens. Every single threat that GAITR identifies is viewed through these 6 core control categories. So what does that mean? It means the intelligence is immediately translated into the language of defense, the language of mitigation. It's instantly practical. The second pillar is STIX 2.1. And honestly, the best way to think about this is as the universal translator for threat intelligence. Because GAITR uses STIX as its native language, all its intelligence flows seamlessly into the security ecosystem you already have. Your SIM, your SOAR, your other threat intel platforms. The point is, it doesn't create another silo. It makes the tools you already use and trust that much smarter. And pillar number 3, this is really cool. It's a sophisticated multi-agent AI system that operates under very strict data governance. This isn't just one big monolithic AI. Think of it as a team of specialists. You've got some agents working autonomously on low-risk stuff, like ingesting public data. But for the really high-impact decisions, like classifying a brand new threat, that absolutely requires a human in the loop. So you get the speed and scale of a machine, but with the critical judgment and oversight of a human expert. Okay, so we have these 3 powerful pillars. How do they actually work together? Let's follow the journey of a threat, from just raw, noisy data out there on the internet, all the way to a piece of clear, actionable, and completely traceable intelligence. It all kicks off with discovery, right? The agents are constantly ingesting new AI tools and incident reports. Then, that raw data goes through enrichment and correlation, where it's tagged and linked to actual real-world events. After that comes analysis, where the threat is mapped to those specific SAIF controls we talked about. The system can even synthesize potential new threat scenarios. And then the final, crucial step, governance. Every single output is validated by a human reviewer to ensure quality and accuracy. And what you get at the end of that life cycle is something incredibly powerful: complete traceability. An alert is no longer just an alert. You can follow its entire history, its entire lineage, all the way back. From the recommended defensive control, to the attack pattern, to the specific incident it was spotted in, right down to the original source tool on GitHub that made it possible. You get an unbroken, completely auditable chain of evidence. Okay, that all sounds great from a technical perspective, right? But what does it actually mean for a security team on a random Tuesday morning? Let's walk through a really practical use case to see how all this powerful intelligence becomes something you can actually use. So here's a scenario that I'm sure is familiar to a lot of you. Your threat intelligence team wants to get ahead of the curve on these new voice cloning tools. They don't want to wait for an executive to get impersonated. They want to hunt this threat proactively. Okay, so with GAITR, the workflow is incredibly clear and direct. First, they search the tool catalog not for a specific tool, but for the capability, voice cloning. Instantly, they see the specific tools out there and any real-world incidents they've been tied to. From there, they can extract the attack fingerprints, generate a credible threat scenario for their business, like, say, executive voice impersonation, and then they get concrete, actionable recommendations on which SAIF controls will actually mitigate that specific risk. They go from a vague worry to a specific, actionable defense plan. Just like that. And remember, driving this whole process is that ecosystem of 10 specialized AI agents we mentioned earlier. Each one has a very specific, bounded job. One is just monitoring for new tools. Another is just correlating incidents. A third is just synthesizing scenarios. It's this expert division of labor that allows for such deep analysis at every single stage of the pipeline. And really, this brings us to the final and most crucial question. Your adversaries are using AI. They're not waiting around. They are leveraging it right now to create more sophisticated, more scalable, and more evasive threats every single day. The battlefield has evolved, and so our intelligence and our defenses must evolve with it. The question isn't if your intelligence needs to be AI aware anymore. The real question is it?